Hey guys, tonight we're going to dive headfirst into a topic so utterly, mind-numbingly dull, it might just be the most effective sleep aid known to humanity. Forget counting sheep. We're going to count the endless, unchanging days of a lighthouse keeper. Imagine, if you will, the ceaseless creak of the wind, the mournful groan of a foghorn, the rhythmic sweep of light across an indifferent sea, and absolutely nothing else. You're not just listening to a story, you're practically living it. Right here, right now, from the comfort of your bed. And let me tell you, you probably won't survive this level of quiet monotony without slipping into a deep, dreamless slumber. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You feel the rough weathered wood of the small skiff beneath you, a vessel that seems barely fit for the journey, yet it's your sole transport. The salty spray, a constant companion, lashes your face, tasting of distant oceans and the promise of absolute isolation. The motor, a sputtering ancient thing, coughs out a rhythmic thrum, the only sound that isn't the vast, indifferent expanse of the sea. Ahead, a jagged silhouette rises from the waves, a mere speck on the horizon that slowly, inevitably, grows larger. This isn't just an island, it's your new world, your new prison, your new everything, and perched atop its highest, most exposed point, a stark, unyielding cylinder of stone and iron stands guard, your lighthouse. As you draw closer, the sheer scale of the place asserts itself. It's not just a building, it's a monument to solitude, a beacon of defiance against the endless dark. You can almost feel the weight of its purpose, the burden of its lonely vigil. The waves, no longer distant echoes, crash against the rocky shore with a thunderous roar, a constant reminder of the ocean's raw power, a power you are now tasked with navigating for others. You notice the narrow, treacherous path carved into the cliff face, a dizzying ascent that looks less like a trail and more like a cruel joke played by a mischievous deity. This is your commute, your lifeline, your daily dose of existential dread. The small boat nudges against a rough-hewn jetty, slick with algae and barnacles. Stepping onto the land, you feel the solid ground beneath your feet, a sensation that is both reassuring and utterly alien after the ceaseless rocking of the waves. The air here is different too. It's thick with the scent of salt and damp rock, with a faint metallic tang that you can't quite place. Maybe it's the lingering smell of passing ships, or perhaps the lonely tears of past keepers. Probably just rust, if we're being honest. Your few belongings, packed into sturdy canvas bags, are hoisted out, looking pitifully inadequate for the task ahead. You eye them, then the immense, imposing structure that looms above you, and a quiet, unsettling laugh escapes your lips. This is it. No turning back. Unless, of course, you brought a spare boat, which, spoiler alert, you didn't. The journey up the winding, slippery path is arduous. Every step is an effort, your muscles protesting against the unfamiliar strain. The wind, no longer merely a breeze, whips around you, tugging at your clothes, threatening to pluck you from the cliff face and hurl you into the churning abyss below. You grip the rough rope handrail, your knuckles white, your breath coming in ragged gasps. Halfway up, you pause, turning to gaze back at the dwindling boat, already a mere dot on the restless sea. A faint wave, a final farewell from the outside world, is your last connection to civilization. You are truly, utterly alone now. Historians still argue whether the first lighthouse keepers truly understood the psychological toll of such isolation before they accepted their posts, or if it was simply a desperate measure born of economic necessity. Reaching the top, you stand before the towering entrance to the lighthouse. It's a heavy iron door, pitted and scarred by countless storms, a testament to its resilience. As you push it open, a low, resonant groan echoes through the hollow interior. The air inside is cool and still, carrying the faint scent of old oil, damp stone, and something else. Something indescribably ancient, like the weight of generations of solitary human presence. The circular staircase stretches upwards, a dizzying spiral into the unknown. Each step is worn smooth by time, and countless footsteps, each one a silent whisper of the lives lived and endured within these walls. You ascend, your own footsteps adding to the quiet symphony of isolation. The living quarters are Spartan, practical, and devoid of any personal touch. A narrow cot, a small wooden table, a single chair. That's it. No Wi-Fi, no Netflix, not even a decent coffee machine. A real downgrade from your last Airbnb, I'm sure. There's a faint, perpetual dampness in the air, a chill that seems to seep into your bones. The windows are small, thick panes of glass, offering glimpses of the tumultuous sea and the endless sky, but always framed, always contained. This is not a place for expansive views. It's a place for duty, for vigilance, for a life meticulously pared down to its bare essentials. You unpack your meager belongings, each item finding its designated utilitarian spot. There's no room for sentimentality here. As dusk begins to paint the sky in hues of bruised purple and fiery orange, you ascend to the lamp room, the very heart of the lighthouse. The immense lens, a masterpiece of polished glass and brass, dominates the space. It gleams in the fading light, refracting the last rays of the setting sun into 1,000 tiny rainbows. You've read about these Fresnel lenses, how they revolutionized lighthouse technology. But seeing one up close is something else entirely. It's a work of art, a marvel of engineering designed to gather and project light across miles of unforgiving ocean. And it's all yours now, to clean, to maintain, to keep burning. The weight of responsibility settles on your shoulders, heavier than any physical burden. You touch the cold, smooth glass, a silent promise to the countless ships that will depend on its unwavering gaze. The first night is a strange blend of awe and apprehension. The world outside the thick walls is a canvas of inky blackness, punctuated only by the brilliant rhythmic flash of your light. You stand by the window, watching its powerful beams sweep across the waves, cutting through the darkness like a luminous sword. The silence inside is profound, broken only by the gentle hum of the lamp mechanism and the distant, constant roar of the ocean. It's a silence that speaks volumes, a silence that demands to be filled by your own thoughts, your own anxieties, your own attempts at self-amusement. You try to recall what day of the week it is, but the concept already feels strangely irrelevant. Time here seems to flow differently, dictated not by clocks, but by the relentless tides and the eternal cycle of light and dark. It's like being in a really slow, really dramatic movie, except you're the only actor, and the reviews are terrible, or non-existent. You find yourself listening, not for anything specific, just listening to the absence of things. No traffic, no chattering crowds, no distant music. Just the sea, the wind, and the beat of your own heart. It's a raw, elemental soundtrack to your new existence. This profound quiet, this deep, unbroken stillness is both a comfort and a challenge. It offers an opportunity for introspection, for a deeper connection with your own thoughts, but it also amplifies every minor creak, every distant splash, every rustle of your own clothing. You realize that you've become an extension of this lighthouse, a living part of its tireless vigilance, forever bound to its singular purpose. And as the first faint hint of dawn paints the eastern sky, you prepare for the routine that will define your days. A routine of meticulous care and profound solitude. You just hope you brought enough snacks. The initial strangeness of solitude settles in, revealing the profound quiet of your new existence. A quiet that isn't just the absence of sound, but a presence in itself. It wraps around you like a thick woolen blanket, muffling the echoes of the world you left behind. You find yourself speaking aloud just to hear a human voice, even if it's your own. and the sound feels shockingly loud in the vast stillness of the tower. There's no one to talk to, no one to share a knowing glance with, no one to even make a witty remark about the surprisingly aggressive seagulls. You quickly learn that silence can be both a friend and a formidable opponent, a canvas for your thoughts, but also a magnifying glass for your anxieties. Your first full day dawns with a muted grey light, the sea a restless expanse of leaden swells. The world outside the thick walls is a canvas of muted colours, a palette of blues and greys that seems to stretch to infinity. You begin to establish a routine, a desperate attempt to impose order on the boundless, unvarying hours. First, a simple breakfast, hardtack, perhaps a bit of salted meat, washed down with lukewarm water. Gourmet it is not. You eat slowly, meticulously, each bite a conscious act, for there are no distractions, no quick checks of your phone, no morning news to consume. This deliberate pace, this mindful consumption, is a stark contrast to the rushed meals of your former life. You find yourself contemplating the texture of the bread, the saltiness of the meat, discovering nuances you never knew existed in such simple fare. It's like a really boring food documentary, starring you. Then comes the real work, the true heart of your days, cleaning the lamp room. This isn't just a quick dust and wipe job. It's a sacred ritual, a meticulous devotion to the light. You begin with the glass panes, each one painstakingly cleaned to remove the accumulated salt spray, the dust, the occasional unfortunate insect. You use soft cloths, careful not to scratch the precious glass, working in slow circular motions. The sunlight, even on this overcast morning, catches the tiny motes of dust dancing in the air. A miniature galaxy within your solitary domain. You polish the brass fittings, their dull surfaces slowly transforming under your ministrations, gleaming like gold. This isn't just about functionality, it's about honoring the light, about ensuring its unblemished strength. As you work, your mind wanders. You recall snippets of conversations, faces of people you've met, moments that once seemed insignificant but now loom large in your memory. The smallest details take on immense significance. The way your grandmother used to hum while she cooked, the particular shade of blue of your best friend's old car, the exact feeling of your favorite armchair. These memories are vivid, almost tactile, as if the quiet has amplified their presence within you. You find yourself wondering what they're doing right now, those people in the bustling, forgotten world. Are they rushing to work? Are they laughing? With friends? The contrast between their lives and yours is stark, almost absurd. It's like watching a chaotic, vibrant party from inside a soundproof box. One of the historical facts that quickly becomes apparent is the sheer physical labor involved in maintaining early lighthouses. Before the advent of automation, keepers often had to haul heavy oil, coal, or even water up hundreds of steps, sometimes several times a day. Imagine your quads after that workout, and you thought your gym membership was tough. It makes your current tasks, while repetitive, feel comparatively luxurious. You marvel at the ingenuity of the early engineers, the way they designed these colossal structures to withstand the relentless assault of nature. The thickness of the walls, the careful joinery of the stone, the sheer audacity of building something so permanent in such a volatile environment. It's a testament to human determination, a quirky tidbit you stumble upon in an old, dust-covered logbook you found tucked away in a cupboard. Some early keepers used to communicate with passing ships, not just with light signals, but with flags and even primitive semaphore. Imagine the messages they might have exchanged. "Ship ahoy, you're looking great today." Or, "Just finished cleaning the lens, wish me luck with the gulls." Historians still argue whether the apparent stoicism of many early keepers was genuine, emotional detachment, or a learned coping mechanism to survive the crushing loneliness. You lean towards the latter, given the constant, dull ache that sometimes settles in your own chest. As the day progresses, you move through the various levels of the lighthouse, checking windows for cracks, sweeping dust from forgotten corners, ensuring everything is in its proper place. The winding stairs become a familiar friend, each step a rhythm in your solitary dance. You touch the cold stone walls, feeling the accumulated years, the echoes of lives lived within these confines. You notice the tiny imperfections in the mortar, the subtle variations in the stone, details you would never have seen in a busier, more demanding life. Your senses, deprived of external stimulation, become sharper, more attuned to the subtle shifts in your immediate environment. You can hear the distant cry of a bird, the subtle change in the wind's direction, the quiet drip of condensation somewhere deep within the structure. Lunch is another solitary affair, a rerun of breakfast. No one to split the last cookie with. No debate over who gets the final slice of pizza. You eat mindfully again, observing the quiet dance of light on the wooden table, the way your shadow stretches and shifts as the day progresses. The sun, when it occasionally breaks through the clouds, casts long, dramatic shafts of light through the narrow windows, illuminating dust motes and lending an almost sacred quality to the mundane surroundings. You find yourself humming, a quiet, tuneless melody, just to fill the silence. It's not a performance, just a gentle internal monologue set to music. The afternoon is reserved for more maintenance, perhaps checking the fuel levels for the lamp, or inspecting the intricate clockwork mechanism that rotates the lens. This mechanism, a marvel of gears and weights, is a constant source of fascination. You trace the intricate lines of its brass components, admiring the precision with which they move, how effortlessly they turn the massive lens. It's a reminder of human ingenuity, of the ability to create complex systems for a singular, vital purpose. You imagine the countless hours of human labor, the meticulous calculations that went into its design and construction. And you wonder, too, about the early keepers who understood its every whir and click, treating it with the reverence it deserved. You know, like how some people treat their fancy espresso machines today. Same energy, different era. As evening approaches, you begin the ritual of preparing the lamp for its nightly vigil. The anticipation builds, a quiet excitement for the moment the powerful beam will cut through the encroaching darkness. You carefully trim the wick, or, if it's an oil lamp, ensure the reservoir is full and the pressure is just right. You check the rotation mechanism one last time, making sure it moves smoothly and quietly. The air in the lamp room grows still, charged with the approaching moment of illumination. You feel a sense of profound connection to this ancient duty, a link in a chain stretching back centuries. It's a job that demands unwavering attention, for the consequences of failure are dire. You stand by the large lens, watching as the last sliver of sun dips below the horizon, painting the western sky in fiery oranges and deep purples. The transition from day to night is swift and dramatic here, unhindered by city lights. And then, with a quiet click, the lamp ignites. The light, once a mere reflection of the sun, now blazes forth with its own powerful, independent brilliance. You watch, mesmerized, as the beam sweeps across the darkening waves, a silent sentinel, a guiding hand in the vast expanse of the ocean. The rhythm of its flash becomes the new heartbeat of your world, a steady, reassuring presence in the encroaching night. And as you gaze out at the newly illuminated darkness, you feel the quiet, profound weight of your purpose, a weight that is both a burden and a comfort. Your days begin with the meticulous, repetitive tasks of keeping the light burning brightly, a rhythm that quickly becomes the steady pulse of your isolated life. Each morning, just before dawn breaks, you make your way to the lamp room. One air is cool, still, carrying the faint scent of oil and glass. The powerful beam, having cut through the darkness all night, seems to hum with a quiet energy, a silent testament to its relentless vigil. Your first duty is to extinguish the light, a precise maneuver that requires careful handling of the mechanisms. As the brilliant beam fades, the world outside slowly emerges from the shadows, bathed in the soft ethereal light of pre-dawn. It's a serene, almost sacred moment, witnessing the transition from night to day from this unique elevated vantage point. Once the lamp is quiet, the real work begins. You start with the lens itself. Even with the best seals, salt spray, dust, and the occasional unfortunate insect find their way onto the massive glass panels. You meticulously wipe down each segment using specially prepared cloths and often a very mild cleaning solution, careful not to leave streaks or smudges. Imagine cleaning a car windshield, but if that windshield was made of incredibly valuable, perfectly curved glass, and its clarity literally meant the difference between life and death for countless sailors. The lens isn't just glass, it's the eye of the lighthouse, and its vision must be crystal clear. This process can take hours, especially if the weather has been particularly foul. You lean into the repetitive motion, your hands moving with practiced efficiency, your mind free to wander or to simply embrace the quiet hum of concentration. Then there's the mechanism. Depending on the era, this could involve a complex clockwork system, weights that needed winding, or later fuel systems for oil or gas lamps. If it's a clockwork system, you'd be checking the gears, applying tiny drops of oil to ensure smooth rotation, and ensuring the weights were properly reset for the next night's operation. It's like tending to a giant, incredibly important grandfather clock that also happens to be a life-saving device. You listen for any unusual clicks or grinding sounds, knowing that even the smallest anomaly could spell disaster. For the more modern but still old-fashioned lamps, you'd be checking the oil levels, trimming the wicks, and cleaning the burners of any soot. This meticulous attention to detail is paramount. A flickering flame, a jerky rotation, or a dimming. Light could lead a ship astray. It's a bit like being a barista, but instead of frothing milk, you're ensuring hundreds of tons of cargo don't end up as driftwood. A mainstream historical fact, the development of the Fresnel lens in the early 19th century revolutionized lighthouse technology. Augustin Jean Fresnel, a French physicist, designed a lens that could magnify a relatively small light source into an incredibly powerful beam, making lighthouses far more effective and visible from much greater distances. Before Fresnel, lenses were often large, inefficient, and parabolic mirrors were commonly used to reflect light. So, when you're polishing that massive piece of glass, you're actually interacting with a pivotal moment in maritime history. A quirky tidbit you might have heard from an old supply boat captain, or read in a forgotten journal. Some lighthouse keepers, especially in remote locations, developed elaborate systems for tracking time and holidays. Without regular contact, the days could blur. One keeper was said to have carved a notch in a piece of wood for every passing day, only realizing he was a week off schedule when the supply boat finally arrived. Historians still argue whether the extreme isolation led to unique forms of mental fortitude among keepers, or if it simply exacerbated existing psychological vulnerabilities, a debate that feels very real as you experience the subtle shifts in your own perception of time. After the lamp room, your duties extend to the entire lighthouse structure. You inspect the exterior for any signs of wear or damage from the relentless elements. Are there new cracks in the stone? Is the paint on the ironwork peeling? Are the windows secure against the next storm? You carry out minor repairs where you can, patching, painting, tightening bolts. It's a never-ending battle against the sea and the wind, a constant vigilance against the forces that seek to reclaim your tower. You develop a deep respect for the sheer resilience of these structures, standing strong against onslaughts that would flatten lesser buildings. Then there are the weather observations. Every few hours, you record the temperature, wind speed and direction, visibility, and sea conditions in a logbook. This data, while seemingly mundane, is crucial for mariners. It helps them plan their routes, anticipate storms, and navigate safely. You stand at a designated vantage point, your eyes scanning the horizon, noting the subtle shifts in the clouds, the changing patterns of the waves. You become intimately familiar with the moods of the ocean, learning to read its subtle cues like a seasoned sailor. You can almost feel the impending shifts in the air pressure, the subtle tightening of the atmosphere before a storm. Your meals continue to be solitary affairs, stripped of any social pretense. You eat for sustenance, the simple act of chewing and swallowing filling the vast silence. There are no culinary adventures here. Your diet is dictated by what the supply boat brings and what preserves best. Dried beans, salted fish, hardtack, canned goods. These are your staples. You find a strange comfort in this predictability, a stability in the sameness of your provisions. It simplifies things, eliminates decisions, allowing your mind to focus on other matters, or perhaps on nothing at all. You're becoming a connoisseur of bland. The afternoons are often spent on maintenance of the living quarters, cleaning, organizing, making small repairs to keep the place habitable. You sweep the dust that seems to perpetually materialize from nowhere, wipe down surfaces, and ensure everything is clean and orderly. There's a quiet satisfaction in this domestic work, a sense of control in a life where so much is dictated by the untamed elements. You might mend a tear in your clothes, or perhaps even attempt some small carpentry if a piece of furniture needs fixing. It's a testament to human adaptability, the way you learn to be entirely self-sufficient, a veritable one-person island economy. Forget Amazon Prime, you're the whole supply chain. As evening approaches, the cycle begins anew. You prepare the lamp for its nightly operation, going through the same meticulous checks you performed in the morning. You clean the glass one last time, ensure the fuel is flowing smoothly, and prepare for the moment of ignition. The ritual is comforting, a familiar sequence of actions that grounds you in the present moment. You feel a deep connection to the generations of keepers who performed these exact same duties, their silent presence almost palpable in the dim light of the lamp room. You become a part of their quiet legacy, a custodian of the light. When the sun finally dips below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery hues, you ignite the lamp. The powerful beam springs to life, cutting through the twilight, its rhythmic flash becoming the only visible sign of human presence on this remote outpost. You watch it for a while, a silent guardian against the encroaching darkness. The rhythmic hum of the mechanism, the sweep of the light across the waves, the distant roar of the sea. These are the sounds that lull you into the night, a symphony of solitude that prepares you for the long, lonely hours until dawn. You sometimes catch yourself talking to the lamp, offering it encouragement or simply acknowledging its tireless work. It's not crazy if there's no one around to witness it, right? You experience your first severe storm, a terrifying symphony of wind and waves against your isolated tower. And suddenly, all the quiet monotony you've grown accustomed to is shattered by a raw, elemental fury. The barometer drops with alarming speed, a telltale sign that something truly monstrous is brewing. The sky, which moments ago was merely overcast, begins to churn, transforming into a bruised, menacing canvas of deep purples and angry greys. The wind, which has been a constant, gentle hum, now begins to keen, a high-pitched wail that sends shivers down your spine. This isn't just bad weather. It's the ocean itself, rising up in a furious, untamed roar. You secure everything that isn't bolted down, a flurry of urgent activity. You check the windows one last time, making sure the heavy shutters are latched tight. You verify the fuel supply for the lamp, knowing that its unwavering beam will be even more critical in the chaos to come. The rhythmic hum of the machinery, usually a comforting sound, now feels like a nervous tremor. You can feel the lighthouse itself vibrate, a low thrumming sensation that resonates through your very bones. It's a stark reminder that this isn't just your home. It's a bulwark against the unbridled power of nature, and your life and the lives of those at sea depend on its steadfastness. The first true onslaught hits with the force of a physical blow. A monstrous gust of wind slams into the tower, making the entire structure shudder. The sound is deafening, a cacophony of howling wind, crashing waves, and the groan of straining stone. You're no longer just hearing the storm, you're feeling it, experiencing its raw, untamed power. Rain lashes against the thick glass of the lamp room, turning the world outside into a blurred, watery kaleidoscope. Visibility plummets to almost zero, and even your powerful beam struggles to pierce the swirling chaos. It's like trying to shine a flashlight through a blender full of grey paint. You cling to the railing, watching in awe and terror as the waves, once mere ripples, become colossal, monstrous entities. They surge and crash against the rocky base of the island with unimaginable force, sending spray hundreds of feet into the air, reaching almost to the lower windows of the lighthouse. The sheer scale of the ocean's fury is humbling, overwhelming. You realize with a chilling clarity just how small and insignificant you are in the face of such raw power. You're not just a keeper of the light. You're a tiny, vulnerable speck holding fast against the apocalypse. A mainstream historical fact, the Eddystone Lighthouse off the coast of Plymouth, England, holds a particularly dramatic history of battling storms. Its early iterations were repeatedly destroyed by severe weather, leading to the development of stronger, more resilient designs. The current Eddystone, built by John Smeaton in the 18th century, was a pioneering example of interlocking stone blocks designed to withstand the very kind of battering you're now enduring. You can almost feel the ghosts of those past keepers, their desperate struggles against the elements, their quiet triumphs echoing within these very walls. A quirky tidbit you might recall from an old sailor's yarn. Some keepers would tie themselves to the lamp mechanism during particularly violent storms, just to ensure they could keep it wound and operating, despite the tower swaying violently. Imagine that commitment. Or more accurately, imagine the sheer terror that would drive someone to such a desperate measure. Historians still argue whether the extreme weather conditions experienced by these isolated keepers were the primary cause of eventual mental breakdowns for some, or if it was the relentless, monotonous isolation that truly chipped away at their sanity. Right now, as the tower sways and groans, you're feeling a bit of both. The storm rages for hours, an unrelenting assault. Sleep is impossible. You pace the lamp room, your eyes glued to the oscillating beam, watching it valiantly cut through the blinding sheets of rain and spray. Every now and then, a truly massive wave hits, sending a shockwave through the entire structure, making the very air vibrate. You hear things you never knew a lighthouse could do. The deep groan of stone, the metallic shriek of stressed iron, the roar of water rushing down the outer walls like 1,000 waterfalls. It's an orchestral nightmare, and you have a front row seat. Despite the chaos, you maintain your vigil. You check the lamp's flame, ensuring it's steady and bright. You monitor the rotation, making sure it hasn't been thrown off by the violent swaying. You wipe condensation from the inner glass, trying to keep the lens as clear as possible. It's a primal duty, stripped of all comfort or convenience. Your hands are cold, your clothes damp, but your focus is unwavering. There's a strange kind of peace in this intense focus, a clarity that comes from facing pure, unadulterated danger. All other worries, all other thoughts are swept away by the storm's fury. As the night wears on, the storm reaches its crescendo. The wind screams like a banshee, and the lighthouse becomes a drum, reverberating with every impact. You swear. You can feel the tower lean, just slightly, under the relentless pressure. Your body aches from the tension. Your ears ring from the ceaseless roar. But through it all, the light continues to sweep. A steady, unwavering pulse of hope in the churning blackness. It's a testament to the thousands of hours of meticulous maintenance, to the unwavering design, and to your own quiet determination. You're not just a person. You're a living extension of the light itself. Slowly, imperceptibly at first, the fury begins to abate. The howling wind softens to a roar, then a strong gale. The crashing waves become less monstrous, though still formidable. As dawn approaches, painting the eastern sky with faint, bruised hues, the rain lessens to a drizzle. Exhaustion washes over you, heavy and profound, but it's tempered by a surge of relief, a quiet triumph. You've faced the storm, and the lighthouse and you have endured. You're still standing, though you probably need a good long nap and about 1,000 cups of very strong tea. Maybe a giant comforting hug from someone who isn't a wall. As the first weak rays of sun break through the lingering clouds, you finally extinguish the lamp. The world outside is a scene of raw, desolate beauty. The sea, though still agitated, no longer rages. Debris litters the shore, a testament to the storm's destructive power. You survey your domain, a silent, tired victor. The lighthouse, though battered, stands proud, its light having shone true through the darkest night. You descend the stairs, your body aching, your mind reeling from the intensity of the experience. But there's a quiet satisfaction, a profound sense of accomplishment. You've earned your solitude tonight. And perhaps, just perhaps, you've finally earned your sea legs, or at least the sea face of a very tired individual. The rare, anticipated arrival of the supply boat punctuates the monotonous rhythm of your life, a lifeline from the distant world that feels increasingly unreal. Days, weeks, sometimes even months, can pass without seeing another human face. The seabirds, the wind, and the rhythmic sweep of the light are your only constant companions. But then, on a particular day, a faint smudge appears on the horizon, barely discernible at first, just a darker pixel against the shimmering expanse of blue. Your heart quickens, a sensation you rarely experience anymore. It's the supply boat as it draws closer. You can almost feel the vibrations of its engine, a sound that is both familiar and utterly alien after the profound quiet of your isolation. You make your way down the treacherous path to the jetty, your movements more agile now, your body accustomed to the steep incline and the slippery rocks. You watch as the boat, a sturdy, unremarkable vessel, approaches, its familiar silhouette a sight for sore eyes. You can just make out the figures on deck, moving with a bustling energy that seems almost frantic compared to your measured solitude. The moment the boat docks, there's a flurry of activity. Crates and barrels are unloaded, each one a precious cargo of sustenance and connection. You help pull the heavy ropes, your muscles straining, a welcome physical exertion after the long periods of quiet observation. The air fills with the sounds of ropes creaking, wood scraping, and the murmured greetings of the crew. They are rough, weathered men, their faces etched with the lines of sea and sun, but their eyes hold a strange mix of pity and respect when they look at you. They offer brief, clipped pleasantries, their voices a jarring intrusion into the delicate tapestry of your silence. A mainstream historical fact. For many isolated lighthouses, especially in areas with treacherous coastlines, resupply was a highly dangerous operation, often requiring specialized skills and nerves of steel. The boats used for resupply were often small, agile, and specifically designed to navigate shallow waters and rocky approaches, and the crews who operated them were among the most skilled mariners. Imagine navigating treacherous currents just to deliver a crate of potatoes. Talk about dedication to carb loading, a quirky tidbit you might learn from one of the older crew members. Some keepers, eager for conversation, would have elaborate, one-sided chats with the seagulls or even their own reflections in the polished brass of the lamp, just to keep their vocal cords working between resupply visits. One keeper was rumoured to have taught his pet parrot to recite naval codes. Historians still argue whether the limited social interaction during resupply visits was enough to stave off the worst effects of prolonged isolation, or if it merely served as a tantalizing glimpse of a world that quickly receded once the boat departed. You exchange information with the captain, weather reports, news from the mainland, often weeks or months old, but still devoured like a precious delicacy, and updates on any significant maritime events. He hands you a small stack of letters and newspapers, your only tangible link to family and friends. You clutch them like treasures, resisting the urge to tear them open immediately. There's a certain ritual to savouring these glimpses of the outside world, a desire to prolong the fleeting connection. The supplies themselves are a testament to the realities of isolated living. Sacks of flour, barrels of salted meat, crates, of dried vegetables, kerosene for the lamp, and perhaps a rare treat like a tin of biscuits or a small piece of fresh fruit. You meticulously check the inventory, ensuring everything is accounted for, that no vital item has been overlooked. Each item is a small victory against the vast indifference of the ocean, a carefully planned provision for the long, lonely stretch ahead. As the crew begins to unload your outgoing requests, perhaps a letter you've painstakingly written, or a small piece of equipment that needs repair on the mainland, you realize how little you have to send back. Your world has shrunk to the confines of this tower and this island. Your thoughts and experiences are not easily translated into words on a page, and the quiet dramas of your days feel insignificant compared to the bustling lives of those ashore. It's a moment of quiet melancholy, a stark realization of the chasm that has opened between you and the rest of humanity. The captain, noticing your quietude, might offer a brief, sympathetic word. "Rough out here, eh, keeper?" You nod, a small, wry smile on your face. There's no need for elaborate explanations. He understands. He knows the weight of the solitude, the silent battles fought within these walls. He's seen it in the eyes of countless keepers before you. There's a shared understanding, a silent brotherhood of those who serve the sea. The time spent with the supply crew is brief, fleeting. They are busy men with other islands to visit, other deliveries to make. The sounds of their chatter, the scrape of their boots on the jetty, the scent of their tobacco smoke, all are vivid, intense sensations that will fade quickly once they're gone. You try to absorb every detail, every fleeting moment of human interaction, knowing it will have to sustain you for the long, quiet stretch until their next visit. It's like a quick, intense burst of sunlight before returning to the perpetual twilight. Too soon, the lines are cast off. The engine sputters to life, and the boat begins to pull away from the jetty. You stand on the shore, watching it recede, waving a silent farewell. The figures on deck wave back, their forms growing smaller and smaller until they merge with the distant horizon. The sound of the engine fades, replaced once again by the familiar roar of the waves and the sigh of the wind. The silence returns, heavy and profound, but somehow different now. It's no longer an unbroken silence. It's a silence that carries the faint echo of human voices, the lingering scent of tobacco, the memory of a fleeting connection. You ascend the path back to the lighthouse, the weight of the new provisions heavy on your shoulders, but the weight of your isolation even heavier. You climb the stairs, your eyes fixed on the stack of letters in your hand. You've waited for this moment, and now that it's here, there's a curious reluctance. Once you open them, the outside world will truly intrude, bringing with it both comfort and a renewed sense of longing. But for now, they are symbols, promises of connection, held close to your chest, waiting for the quiet, solitary moment when you can truly savor their contents. You master the frugal and uninspired art of preparing meals from your limited, often preserved stores, transforming the very act of eating into a quiet ritual rather than a culinary delight. With the supply boat long gone, the fleeting connection to the outside world fades, leaving you once again to the company of your island and its steadfast light. Your larder, while stocked, offers little in the way of variety or fresh produce. This isn't a place for spontaneous gourmet experiments. It's a realm of practical sustenance, of making do with what you have. Your kitchen, if it can even be called that, is a small, functional space tucked away in the living quarters. A rudimentary stove, a few battered pots and pans, and a small, often damp pantry are your tools. There's no refrigerator, of course, just cool storage areas where perishables are kept for as long as possible. Meat is usually salted or cured, vegetables dried or canned, and bread is baked infrequently from flour that arrived weeks ago. Your mornings begin with the smell of brewing tea or coffee, a rare luxury, its aroma a small comfort in the vast quiet. Breakfast is typically the same. Hardtack softened in hot water, perhaps with a bit of jam if you're lucky enough to have. some left, or a piece of cured fish. You chew slowly, deliberately, savoring each bite not for its flavor, but for its sustenance. There's no rush, no one else to share the table with, no morning news to distract you. You simply eat, observing the way the light filters through the small window, or listening to the familiar roar of the waves against the rocks below. It's a meditative act, stripped of all extraneous noise. Lunch is often a cold meal, a simple affair of leftover salted meat or a tin of sardines, perhaps a few dried biscuits. You find yourself becoming incredibly resourceful, learning to stretch ingredients, to combine flavors in ways you never thought possible. A handful of dried peas, a bit of rendered fat, and some stale bread can become a surprisingly hearty, if unexciting, soup. You develop an appreciation for the simple, unadorned flavors of basic ingredients, a palate refined by necessity. It's like being on a perpetual, incredibly strict, reality cooking show where the prize is just more food. A mainstream historical fact: before refrigeration, lighthouse keepers relied heavily on preserved foods like salted meats, dried beans, hardtack, and root vegetables that could be stored in cool, dark places for extended periods. Fresh produce was a rare and highly anticipated treat, often only available immediately after a supply drop. This diet, while preventing scurvy, mostly, wasn't exactly a feast for the senses. A quirky tidbit you might recall from a faded entry. In an old lighthouse logbook, one keeper, so desperate for fresh greens, managed to grow a tiny patch of hardy vegetables in a sheltered crevice on the rocks, meticulously guarding them from the omnipresent seagulls. He called it his victory garden, a small act of defiance against the harshness of the island. Historians still argue whether the perceived lack of variety in keepers' diets contributed to the overall sense of monotony, or if the simple act of preparing and consuming food became a grounding ritual that provided a sense of order. Dinner is the main meal, a slightly more elaborate affair, though still deeply practical. You might stew dried beans with a piece of smoked ham, or make a thick porridge from oats. The cooking process itself becomes a quiet companion. The rhythmic chop of vegetables, the sizzle of fat in the pan, the gentle bubbling of a pot on the stove. These are the sounds that fill your small kitchen, a comforting counterpoint to the endless roar of the sea. You develop a certain finesse, a quiet confidence in your ability to transform humble ingredients into something edible, if not exactly delectable. You learn to ration, to stretch your supplies, always mindful of the long stretch until the next supply boat. Every grain of rice, every piece of dried fruit is precious. Waste is not an option. You become an expert at estimating consumption, at planning meals weeks in advance, a master of culinary logistics. It's a stark contrast to the casual abundance of the mainland, where a trip to the market could instantly satisfy any craving. Here, every meal is a testament to careful planning and a deep understanding of preservation. The occasional success, a perfectly baked loaf of bread after many frustrating failures, or a surprisingly flavorful stew, brings a quiet satisfaction. These small victories are savored, proof of your growing self-sufficiency, your increasing mastery over the practical demands of your isolated life. You find a strange pride in these simple achievements, far removed from the grand accomplishments of the world beyond your horizon. It's like getting a perfect score on a video game, but the game is survive on island, don't starve. As you eat, you often find yourself staring out the window, watching the sea, the sky, the endless expanse. Your thoughts drift, not to specific events, but to broader, more abstract concepts. The nature of time, the resilience of the human spirit, the profound indifference of the universe. The simple act of eating becomes a backdrop for deep contemplation, a quiet moment for your mind to unfurl. The only company is your own thoughts, which can be surprisingly good conversationalists, albeit a bit repetitive. Sometimes, after a particularly challenging day, perhaps battling a minor storm or fixing a stubborn part of the lamp mechanism, the comfort of a warm, simple meal is a profound solace. It's a reminder of humanity's fundamental need for warmth and nourishment. a basic truth that transcends all the complexities of modern life. You eat slowly, letting the warmth spread through you, feeling the strength return to your limbs. As the sun begins to dip towards the horizon, painting the sky in fiery hues, you meticulously clean up your small kitchen. Every pot, every dish is washed and put away, leaving the space tidy and ready for the next day's frugal fare. There's a certain peace in this final act of the day, a sense of completion. You've fed yourself, sustained yourself, and once, again, met the fundamental demands of your unique existence. And as darkness truly falls, and the powerful beam of the lighthouse springs to life, you settle into the quiet rhythm of your solitary vigil, nourished in body and soul by the quiet, uninspired art of daily bread. Your few hours of downtime are filled with surprisingly mundane and quiet forms of entertainment, a testament to how the mind adapts to profound solitude. With no internet, no television, no endless stream of digital distractions, you are forced to rediscover the simple analog pleasures of existence. The world outside your immediate duties disappears, leaving only the quiet space for your own thoughts and the few precious items you brought with you. One of the most frequent activities is reading. You devour any book that comes your way, whether it's a worn novel left by a previous keeper, a tattered magazine from a passing ship, or the few precious volumes you brought yourself. The stories become incredibly vivid in your mind, the characters almost tangible, as if the quiet has amplified your imagination. You might reread the same book multiple times, discovering new nuances, new layers of meaning with each pass. The plot isn't just a sequence of events, it's a doorway to another world, a temporary escape from the unchanging reality of your island. You find yourself pondering the motivations of fictional characters more deeply than you ever did people in real life. It's like a really intense book club where you're the only member and you never agree with yourself. Writing is another quiet pursuit. You might keep a journal, meticulously recording the weather, the ships you spot, and the subtle shifts in your own mood. These entries are not for an audience. They are for yourself. A way to process the vastness of your experiences, to anchor your thoughts in a tangible form. You might write letters to family and friends, knowing they will take weeks, perhaps months, to reach their destination. These letters are often long, detailed, filled with observations about the sea, the sky, and the profound quiet, an attempt to bridge the immense distance that separates you. Sometimes, you might even try your hand at poetry, finding inspiration in the endless horizon or the raw power of a storm. A mainstream historical fact: many lighthouse keepers throughout history were avid readers and writers, often using their journals to record detailed meteorological observations, ship traffic, and personal reflections. These logs provide invaluable historical records, offering glimpses into daily life in isolation. They were, in a sense, the original bloggers, just with significantly less audience engagement. A quirky tidbit that might make you chuckle: some keepers, lacking chess partners, would meticulously play full games against themselves, moving the pieces for both sides, occasionally even arguing aloud over a particularly difficult move. One keeper was said to have trained a pet mouse to push the pawns. Historians still argue whether the creative pursuits of isolated keepers were a sign of robust mental resilience, or merely desperate attempts to stave off the crushing effects of boredom and mental decay. Puzzles are another quiet diversion, perhaps a worn deck of cards, allowing for endless games of solitaire, or a small intricate wooden puzzle you brought with you. The challenge of a crossword, or a complex riddle, provides a welcome focus, a momentary distraction from the deeper currents of your thoughts. There's a particular satisfaction in solving a difficult problem, a small victory in a world where grand achievements are few and far between. It's a bit like being a detective, but the only crime scene is your own boredom. You also spend time observing the natural world around you. The sea, in all its moods, becomes a constant source of fascination. You learn to identify different types of waves, to predict changes in the weather by the subtle shifts in the clouds, to recognize the flight patterns of migrating birds. The island itself, once a mere rock, transforms into a miniature ecosystem, teeming with surprising life. You might watch a family of seals on the distant rocks, or track the progress of a lone seabird circling high above. These observations are not scientific. They are simply a way to connect with the living world, to feel less alone in the vastness. Simple craftsmanship can also fill the hours. Perhaps you mend your own clothes, stitching patches onto worn fabric, or try your hand at carving small pieces of driftwood found on the shore. These aren't grand artistic endeavors. They are practical, tangible acts of creation, a way to occupy your hands and your mind. There's a quiet satisfaction in working with natural materials, in transforming something raw into something useful or beautiful, even if it's just a crudely carved bird. Music, if you have an instrument or a device that doesn't require power, becomes a cherished companion. Perhaps a harmonica, a small flute, or even just your own voice humming a familiar tune. The melodies fill the silent rooms of the lighthouse, a vibrant contrast to the monotonous roar of the sea. You might sing old sea shanties or folk songs, or simply hum wordless tunes, finding comfort in the rhythm and harmony. It's a private concert, played for an audience of one, or perhaps for the ghosts of keepers past. Sometimes, the most profound leisure is simply being. You might sit by a window, staring out at the ocean for hours, lost in thought, or perhaps in no thought at all. The act of pure contemplation, unburdened by schedules or demands, becomes a luxury. The silence allows your mind to expand, to explore pathways it never had the time or space to before. You become acutely aware of the passage of time, not in minutes or hours, but in the slow turning of the sun, the shifting patterns of the clouds, the relentless ebb and flow of the tides. Even sleep becomes a form of leisure, a welcome escape. Into the world of dreams, a place where the rules of isolation don't apply. You cherish those moments of unconsciousness, knowing that when you awaken, the quiet, repetitive duties of the lighthouse will once again await you. Your days off are not about exciting adventures. They are about quiet restoration, about finding small pockets of peace and contentment within the confines of your unique, solitary existence. And slowly, imperceptibly, you begin to appreciate the profound beauty of this quiet, unhurried pace, a stark contrast to the frantic rush of the world, beyond the waves. Beyond the waves. Observing the natural world becomes your primary companion, the surrounding sea and sky offering subtle dramas and constant changes that fill the void of human interaction. With no other distractions, your senses, once dulled by the clamor of civilization, become exquisitely attuned to the minutiae of your environment. Every ripple on the water, every shift in the clouds, every distant cry of a bird registers with a newfound intensity. It's a perpetual nature documentary playing out before your eyes, and you, the sole audience member, have an uninterrupted front row seat. The sea, of course, is your constant focus. You learn its many moods, from the glassy stillness of a perfectly calm morning to the furious, churning rage of a gale. You can read the subtle cues on its surface, the way the swells indicate distant weather systems, the darker patches that suggest hidden reefs, the glint of sunlight on a shoal of fish. You watch the relentless ebb and flow of the tides, a primordial rhythm that dictates so much of your world. You see the incredible power of the waves crashing against the rocks, carving and sculpting the very island beneath your feet over unimaginable stretches of time. It's a humbling, awe-inspiring display, a constant reminder of forces far greater than any human endeavor. Above you, the sky is an equally captivating canvas. You become an amateur meteorologist, learning to identify cloud formations and predict weather patterns with surprising accuracy. The towering cumulus clouds promising fair weather, the ominous nimbostratus heralding rain, the high wispy cirrus hinting at distant changes. Each holds a story. You watch the sun track its arc across the heavens, its light painting the sea in ever-changing hues, from the soft golds of dawn to the fiery oranges and purples of sunset. At night, the stars blaze with an intensity you never knew existed, unmarred by light pollution, a cosmic spectacle that makes your island feel like a tiny, lonely speck in an infinite universe. And the moon, in all its phases, casts its ethereal glow upon the water, turning the waves into shimmering silver ribbons. It's a free light show with no cover charge, a mainstream historical fact. Before advanced meteorological technology, lighthouse keepers were often the primary source of real-time weather observations for their regions. Their detailed logbook, entries, noting wind direction, sea state, and cloud types were crucial for maritime navigation and early weather forecasting. They were essentially the original weather apps, just a lot slower to update. A quirky tidbit you might find amusing: some particularly lonely keepers would name the individual larger waves during a storm, giving them grand dramatic titles based on their perceived ferocity. Imagine shouting, "Here comes the Leviathan's fury," at a particularly large breaker. Historians still argue whether this personification of nature was a sign of a deeper, more primal connection to the environment, or simply a coping mechanism for prolonged isolation in the face of overwhelming natural forces. The wildlife, too, becomes a source of quiet fascination. The seabirds, always present, become distinct personalities. You learn to recognize the mournful cry of the gulls, the silent, efficient dives of the gannets, the awkward waddle of the puffins, if your island hosts them, as they return to their nests. You might spot a pod of dolphins arcing through the waves, or a seal basking on a distant rock. These creatures, utterly indifferent to your presence, are a vital connection to the living world, a reminder that you are not entirely alone. They are your unassuming neighbors, always busy with their own fishy concerns. You observe the subtle changes of the seasons, marked not by calendars or societal events, but by the migration of birds, the subtle shifts in the strength of the sun, the temperature of the wind. Spring brings new life to the sparse vegetation on the island, a surprising burst of green against the grey rock. Winter wraps everything in a stark, crystalline beauty, often bringing raging storms and days of profound solitude. Each season has its own unique character, its own particular challenges and quiet joys. Even the smallest details capture your attention. The way the lichen grows on the rocks, tracing intricate patterns of green and gold. The resilient wildflowers that manage to bloom in sheltered crevices, defying the harsh elements. The tiny creatures that scuttle amongst the pebbles on the shore. Your world has shrunk, but in doing so, it has become infinitely more detailed, more vibrant, more worthy of close observation. You become a reluctant expert in all things small and surprisingly hardy. There's a deep, almost spiritual connection that forms between you and this wild, untamed environment. You are not merely an observer, you are a part of it, a silent sentinel, standing in harmony with the elements. The wind whips through your hair, the spray mists your face, the roar of the sea fills your ears. You are immersed, fully present, in this raw, elemental existence. It's a profound shift from the mediated realities of modern life, a return to something primal and fundamental. As dusk falls each day, and you prepare the lamp for its nightly vigil, you take a moment to gaze out at the vast expanse, the boundary where sea meets sky. You watch as the last vestiges of daylight fade, and the powerful beam of the lighthouse springs to life, cutting through the encroaching darkness. It's a silent, unwavering beacon, a testament to humanity's enduring will to impose order and safety on the wild, unpredictable world. And you, the lonely keeper, are its beating heart, your quiet observations of nature providing the vital backdrop to its nightly purpose. The weight of loneliness, a quiet, insidious presence, begins to surface, revealing moments of profound solitude and the quiet ache of missing human connection. In the early days, The novelty of your unique situation, the sheer amount of work, and the intensity of your first storm kept the deeper currents of isolation at bay. But now, as routine settles in, and the initial awe of your surroundings transforms into a familiar backdrop, the absence of others becomes a palpable force. It's not a sudden, overwhelming wave of despair, but a slow, creeping realization, like a persistent chill that settles deep in your bones. You find yourself replaying conversations in your mind, not just from the recent past, but from years ago. You conjure up the faces of friends, family, even casual acquaintances, trying to recall the nuances of their expressions, the particular timbre of their laughter. Sometimes, you imagine what they would say in response to something you observe, carrying on silent, imagined dialogues within the confines of your own head. It's a bittersweet exercise, a way to maintain a connection, however tenuous, to the world you left behind, but it also underscores the vast distance that now separates you. There are moments when the silence is no longer comforting, but oppressive. It presses in on you, amplifying every creak of the old lighthouse, every distant sigh of the wind. You might hum to yourself, or sing quietly, just to break the profound stillness. The sound of your own voice, even in song, can feel strange, alien, an echo in a vast, empty chamber. You might find yourself talking to inanimate objects, to the lamp mechanism, to a stubborn bucket, offering them a running commentary on your day, or a particularly dry joke. It's not madness, just a coping mechanism, a desperate attempt to fill the conversational void. A mainstream historical fact: isolation, especially for extended periods, can have significant psychological effects, including altered perceptions of time, increased anxiety, and in some cases, even hallucinations. The phenomenon of lighthouse syndrome, where keepers reported strange sounds, visions, or a persistent sense of presence, was documented in various forms throughout history. So, if you start seeing a ghostly teacup float by, don't worry. It's just history repeating itself, a quirky tidbit that sometimes gets whispered among old salts. Some keepers would start to personify the light itself, treating the massive lamp as a living, breathing entity, confiding their fears and thoughts to its unwavering beam. Historians still argue whether the apparent stoicism and resilience of many keepers masked deep-seated psychological struggles, or if the unique demands of the role fostered a distinct mental toughness that allowed them to thrive in extreme isolation. The absence of touch is another profound aspect of the loneliness. No handshake, no comforting pat on the shoulder, no simple human embrace. You become acutely aware of your own physical isolation, the complete lack of casual contact. You might find yourself unconsciously rubbing your own arm or clenching your fists, a primal need for connection that has no outlet. This quiet, physical ache is often harder to articulate than the mental burden, a pervasive emptiness that lingers just beneath the surface of your conscious thought. Sleep can become a strange escape, but also a source of longing. Your dreams might be vivid, populated by the faces of those you miss, by the sounds and sights of a bustling city. Waking up to the stark reality of your solitary existence after a night of imagined company can be a jarring, even painful experience. The comfort of the dream world fades, replaced by the familiar silence and the relentless duties of the lighthouse. You learn to brace yourself for these mornings, for the quiet re-entry into your isolated reality. There are days when a profound ennui settles over you, a deep, pervasive boredom that feels heavier than any physical task. The repetition of your duties, once a comfort, can become a monotonous grind. The beauty of the sea and sky, once captivating, can seem merely vast and indifferent. On these days, every action feels effortful. Every minute stretches into an hour. You find yourself gazing out at the horizon, not with awe, but with a dull, aching longing for something, anything, to break the unbroken sameness. You might engage in small, seemingly irrational acts, just to feel a sense of agency or to break the pattern. rearranging your few possessions, pacing the spiral staircase just for the sake of movement, or meticulously polishing a surface that's already gleaming. These acts are not about efficiency. They are about pushing back against the inertia of isolation, about asserting your presence in a world that often feels designed to diminish it. It's like doing jumping jacks in an empty ballroom. The letters from the mainland, once a source of intense anticipation, can sometimes become a source of further melancholic reflection. They bring news of a world that is moving on without you, of lives that are vibrant and complex, filled with connections you no longer share. You read about weddings, births, promotions, small dramas and triumphs, and while you feel a pang of genuine happiness for those involved, there's also a quiet sorrow, a sense of being an observer rather than a participant. Your replies are often brief, containing little of the vast internal landscape you inhabit. How do you explain the subtle shifts in the wind, or the profound silence of a moonless night, to someone grappling with a leaky faucet or a difficult boss? As the days turn into weeks and the weeks into months, the loneliness becomes a familiar, if unwelcome, companion. It's a part of the air you breathe, the silence that surrounds you. You learn to live with it, to acknowledge its presence without letting it consume you entirely. You find small ways to mitigate its sting through your reading, your observations, your quiet rituals. But the ache of missing human connection, that fundamental human need for companionship, remains, a silent, persistent thrum beneath the surface of your isolated life, The quiet routine of your solitary existence is occasionally, dramatically, broken by unusual visitors and occurrences, moments that stand out in sharp relief against the backdrop of your daily life. These aren't planned events. They are intrusions, fleeting connections to a world beyond your immediate control, and they always leave a lingering sense of unreality. One morning, the familiar roar of the waves is suddenly joined by an unfamiliar thrum. You rush to a window, scanning the horizon, and there it is, a ship, not a common freighter or fishing trawler, but a sleek, almost impossibly graceful sailing yacht, its white sails billowing against the blue sky. It's too close to shore, dangerously close, and its presence here, in these treacherous waters, is baffling. You watch, transfixed as it sails by, a vision of elegance and vulnerability. Perhaps it's off course, or simply testing the limits of its navigation. You raise your binoculars, trying to discern any signs of distress, any faces on deck, but it passes quickly, a fleeting apparition, leaving only a shimmering wake and a sense of wonder. Why was it there? Where was it going? You'll never know, and the questions hang in the air, unanswered. It's like spotting a unicorn at a gas station, utterly out of place, utterly captivating. Sometimes the visitors aren't human at all. A massive whale might breach unexpectedly close to the island, its colossal form rising from the depths before crashing back into the sea with a thunderous splash. You might spend hours watching a pod of dolphins playfully leaping through the waves, their sleek bodies glistening in the sunlight. Or perhaps a rare exotic bird, blown off course by a distant storm, might seek refuge on your isolated rock, its vibrant plumage a shocking burst of colour against the muted landscape. These encounters with wild nature are profound, a reminder of the vast, untamed beauty that surrounds you, and a subtle sense of kinship with these untamed creatures who, like you, navigate the immense indifference of the ocean. A mainstream historical fact. Isolated lighthouses, particularly those on remote islands, often served as crucial resting or nesting spots for migratory birds and marine life. Keepers frequently documented these observations, contributing valuable, albeit informal data, to early natural history studies. You might even find sketches of local fauna in old logbooks, drawn by bored or curious keepers. A quirky tidbit that would definitely make you do a double take. There are documented instances of animals, especially seals or large seabirds, attempting to gain entry into lighthouses during particularly severe storms, seeking shelter from the elements. Imagine opening your door to find a very soggy seal looking up at you with pleading eyes. Historians still argue whether the occasional appearance of these unexpected visitors was truly a disruption to the keeper's solitary routine, or if they were, in fact, a welcome and necessary emotional lifeline in the profound isolation. 1. Particularly memorable incident might involve a small fishing boat, caught in a sudden squall, seeking shelter in the lee of your island. You watch from above as the fishermen expertly wrestle with their gear, their faces etched with concern. You can't communicate directly, but you know your light is their guide, your tower, their silent guardian. You feel a surge of primal connection, a profound sense of purpose. Later, as the storm passes and they sail away, you might see a hand raised in a gesture of thanks, a silent acknowledgement across the waves. That small human gesture resonates for days, a precious reminder of your vital role. Then there are the messages in a bottle of the sea, things that wash ashore, not literal messages usually, but fragments of humanity. A wooden crate with a foreign label, a single, waterlogged boot, a piece of tangled fishing net, or perhaps a child's toy, mysteriously delivered by the tide. Each object carries a story, a faint echo of another life, another place. You pick them up, examine them, and sometimes keep them. These silent artifacts of the outside world, reminders of the complex, interconnected lives that exist beyond your solitary vigil. They are like cryptic postcards from the universe. Occasionally, you might spot something truly unusual. A distressed flare far on the horizon, signaling trouble, or perhaps the ominous shadow of a submarine, moving silently beneath the surface, a reminder of the unseen world beneath the waves. These moments are often accompanied by a surge of adrenaline, a sharp departure from your usual calm. You check your logs, note the time and coordinates, ready to report if necessary. They are brief, dramatic intrusions into your carefully constructed world, reminding you that even in profound isolation, you are still connected to a larger, sometimes dangerous reality. There are also the internal occurrences, a sudden, unexplained flicker in the lamp's flame that resolves itself before you can even investigate. A strange sound echoing through the empty tower late at night, a creak or a groan that seems to come from nowhere, making the hairs on your arms stand up. These are often just the old building settling or the wind playing tricks, but in the profound silence, they can take on an almost supernatural quality. Your mind, starved of external stimuli, becomes exceptionally good at finding patterns and sometimes at inventing them. These unusual events, whether grand or subtle, serve to break the relentless rhythm of your days. They are disruptions, yes, but also moments of intensity, of unexpected connection, of raw, unmediated experience. They highlight the precariousness of your position, the constant dance between order and chaos, predictability, and the utterly unforeseen. And when they pass, leaving only the familiar roar of the waves and the sweep of your light, the quiet returns, deeper and more profound than before, now subtly tinged with the memory of what was and the anticipation of what might still come. You know you're the star of your own very niche, very lonely, very oceanic reality show. You delve into the intricate mechanics of the lamp, its gears and lenses a constant puzzle, a mesmerizing dance of light and shadow that both defines your existence and demands your unyielding attention. It's more than just a light source. It's the very heart of the lighthouse, a complex symphony of engineering and precision that has to function flawlessly, day in and day out, regardless of the raging storms or the profound silence of calm seas. Your daily interaction with the lamp begins with a meticulous cleaning, a ritual you now perform almost instinctively. Every morning, after extinguishing the light, you meticulously wipe down the massive Fresnel lens. You use specially prepared cloths, soft as silk, and sometimes a very mild, non-abrasive cleaning solution. Salt spray, dust, and microscopic debris accumulate constantly, and even the tiniest smudge can refract the light incorrectly, diminishing its power. You trace the intricate rings of the lens with your fingertips, feeling the subtle curves and facets. A masterpiece of optical engineering designed to gather and project light across miles of unforgiving ocean. It's an intimate dance, you and this colossal eye ensuring its vision remains crystal clear. Then there's the lamp itself. Depending on the lighthouse's era, this could be a sophisticated oil lamp with multiple wicks and a pressurized fuel system, or a later incandescent bulb. If it's an oil lamp, you meticulously trim the wicks, ensuring they are even and clean. To prevent flickering or soot buildup, you check the fuel levels, pumping fresh oil into the reservoir, your nose accustomed to the faint metallic scent of kerosene. You check the pressure gauges, ensuring the fuel flow is consistent, a critical factor for a steady, powerful beam. It's a delicate balance, one that requires a steady hand and an almost intuitive understanding of the system's quirks. The rotation mechanism is arguably the most fascinating and temperamental part of the entire assembly. This is what makes the light appear to flash, sending out its unique identifying signal. For older lighthouses, this was a clockwork mechanism, a marvel of brass gears, intricate levers, and heavy weights. You learn to wind these weights daily, a surprisingly physical task that involves pulling chains, feeling the heavy resistance as the gears slowly turn. The rhythmic tick-tock of the clockwork, punctuated by the occasional soft whir as the lens slowly rotates, becomes the quiet heartbeat of your lamp room. You apply tiny drops of specialized oil to key pivot points, listening intently for any unusual clicks or grinding sounds, knowing that even the smallest hitch could halt the rotation, potentially leading a ship astray. It's like tending to a really, really expensive, very large, and rather vital antique watch. A mainstream historical fact: the specific sequence and duration of light flashes, e.g., a single flash every 10 seconds, or 2 flashes in quick succession, followed by a pause, is called a character or signature. Each lighthouse has a unique character, allowing mariners to identify their location, even in dense fog or at great distances. This system was vital for navigation and continues, in automated form, today. A quirky tidbit you might have heard from an old retired keeper from a brief mainland visit. Some keepers developed a bizarre habit of speaking to the lamp mechanism, offering it encouragement or gentle reprimands when it seemed to be acting up. "Come on, old girl, just a few more hours," you might hear yourself mutter as you check a stubborn gear. Historians still argue whether the meticulous, almost obsessive attention to the lamp's mechanics was purely born of professional duty, or if it also served as a profound form of meditative focus, a way to anchor the mind in the vast, empty hours of solitude. You become an expert at minor repairs. A loose screw, a stiff bearing, a frayed wire. You learn to diagnose and fix these small issues with the limited tools at your disposal. You spend hours poring over worn diagrams and faded instruction manuals left by previous keepers, piecing together the functions of each part, understanding how they interrelate. Every component, no matter how small, is crucial to the lamp's proper operation. There's a profound satisfaction in bringing a temperamental piece of machinery back to perfect working order, a quiet triumph in a life where external validation is non-existent. During the long nights, especially when storms rage outside, you maintain a constant vigil over the lamp. The rhythmic sweep of the beam across the turbulent waves is your hypnotic companion. You listen to the hum of the mechanism, the subtle shifts in its sound, ready to spring into action at the first sign of trouble. The intense focus on the lamp's flawless operation pushes away the deeper pangs of loneliness. In these moments, you are not just a person. You are an extension of the light itself, a living component of its tireless vigilance. Your entire being is wrapped up in its relentless life-saving purpose. The lens itself, with its complex series of prisms and rings, seems to hold an almost magical quality. You understand the physics behind it, how it gathers disparate rays of light and focuses them into a single powerful beam. But there's something more. It feels like a living eye, gazing out into the darkness, a symbol of hope and safety for those at sea. You often find yourself simply gazing at it, watching the light refract and dance within its polished surfaces, a quiet, internal awe washing over you. As dawn approaches and the world begins to lighten, you perform the ritual in reverse. You carefully dim the lamp, then extinguish it, the powerful beam gradually fading until the lamp room is filled only with the soft, ethereal light of the rising sun. The hum of the mechanism ceases, and the silence returns, now punctuated only by the distant roar of the ocean. You've done your job flawlessly for another night. And as you descend the spiral stairs, your body tired but your mind clear, you carry with you the quiet satisfaction of a duty meticulously fulfilled. A promise kept to the vast indifferent sea. Vast indifference. You uncover the quiet, often unwritten history of your particular beacon and its past keepers. A narrative whispered in the creaks of old timber, etched into the worn stone, and occasionally revealed in a faded logbook or a forgotten inscription. This isn't the grand, sweeping history of nations, but a humble, intimate tale of endurance, routine, and profound solitude. A story that resonates deeply within the quiet confines of your own isolated life. Your initial discoveries are subtle, found in the very fabric of the lighthouse itself. The deeper you delve into the nooks and crannies, the more you notice the small imperfections, the worn handrails, the patches of newer mortar beside older stone. These are not flaws, but testaments to past repairs, each one a silent echo of a keeper who once grappled with a leaking roof or a crumbling step. You trace the names and dates scratched into the rough-hewn timbers of the lower levels, clandestine marks left by those who served before you, brief assertions of their fleeting presence against the vast indifference of time and sea. These aren't famous figures. They are just like you, a series of anonymous guardians of the light. The most tangible connection to the past comes through the discovery of old logbooks tucked away in dusty cupboards or locked drawers. Their pages, often yellowed and brittle, are filled with faded ink, detailing daily weather observations, ships spotted, and the meticulous records of lamp maintenance. But hidden among these dry entries are glimpses of human life. A terse note about a particularly violent storm, a rare mention of a passing visitor, a quiet observation about the migration of birds. You read them slowly, carefully, piecing together the routines and rhythms of those who stood vigil in this very spot, their lives a mirror to your own. You realize these aren't just records, they're silent conversations across time. A mainstream, historical fact. Before widespread automation, lighthouse keeping was often a hereditary profession, passed down through families for generations. Sons would follow fathers, learning the intricate duties from a young age, creating a unique lineage of isolated guardians. This contributed to a continuity of knowledge and a deep understanding of particular lighthouses and their surrounding waters. A quirky tidbit you might read in one of those old journals, almost too strange to be true. One keeper meticulously documented the personality traits of individual seagulls that regularly visited the lighthouse, giving them names and noting their peculiar behaviors. It's a testament to the lengths people would go to for companionship, even if it was with a demanding feathered friend who probably just wanted your lunch. Historians still argue whether the detailed record keeping by early keepers was primarily a functional requirement for safe navigation, or if it also served as a profound psychological tool, providing a sense of purpose and structure in an otherwise monotonous existence. You notice subtle differences in the maintenance routines. Subtle improvements over the years. An earlier keeper might have had a less efficient oil lamp, requiring more frequent tending. Another might have built a small crude windbreak to protect a particularly exposed window. These incremental changes speak of adaptation, ingenuity, and a quiet dedication to improving the beacon for those who would follow. You feel a kinship with these unseen predecessors, a shared understanding of the challenges and rewards of this solitary calling. Sometimes, you find small personal artifacts left behind. A button from an old uniform, a broken pipe, a carefully carved piece of driftwood. Each object tells a tiny, unspoken story, a fragment of a life lived within these stone walls. You pick them up, turning them over in your hands, imagining the keeper who owned them, the hours they spent in this very room. These aren't grand relics, but humble connections to the human experience of isolation. You might learn about the lighthouse's construction, how the stones were quarried, transported, and painstakingly laid, often in incredibly harsh conditions. The sheer human effort involved in building such a defiant structure against the elements is mind-boggling. You walk the spiral stairs, feeling the smooth wear on each step, knowing countless feet, belonging to countless keepers, have ascended and descended here day after day, year after year. Every creak, every groan of the ancient structure seems to whisper tales of their quiet dedication. The history isn't always recorded. Sometimes it's just a feeling, a subtle presence in the air, the lingering scent of old oil, the particular way the wind whistles through a vent, the ghostly echo of a closing door that you know you didn't close. Your mind, attuned to the quiet, begins to fill the void with imagined presences, with the echoes of lives lived. You might even find yourself speaking aloud to them, offering a quiet greeting or a shared observation about the weather, a comforting thought in the vast silence. As you perform your duties, you become acutely aware of the historical continuum you are a part of. When you clean the lens, you are mirroring the actions of a keeper from a century ago. When you record the weather, you are adding to a record that stretches back decades, possibly even longer. You are not just a solitary figure on a rock. You are a link in a long, unbroken chain of vigilance, a custodian of a legacy that transcends individual lives. The profound quiet of your isolation allows for this deep dive into the past. There are no distractions, no urgent demands on your attention other than the light itself. This stillness fosters contemplation, allowing your mind to wander through the corridors of time, to connect with the silent predecessors who shared your unique burden. You realize that your loneliness is not new. It is a shared experience, an echo of countless others who have stood in your place, tending the light, battling the storms, and quietly enduring the profound solitude of this lonely vigil. The extended period of isolation begins to subtly alter your perceptions and routines, shaping your very being in ways you might not even fully recognize until much later. The mainland you left behind starts to feel less like a place you inhabited, and more like a distant, fading memory, a dream that grows less distinct with each passing, solitary day. Your internal clock, once governed by schedules and appointments, now dances to the primordial rhythm of the tides and the sun's relentless journey across the sky. Time itself takes on a fluid, elastic quality. Hours can stretch into what feels like an eternity, especially during long, uneventful afternoons. Conversely, entire days can blend together, dissolving into a seamless continuum of light, dark, and duty. You might lose track of the exact day of the week, finding yourself relying on the arrival of the supply boat as your primary temporal marker. The concepts of weekend or holiday become meaningless abstractions, replaced by the unchanging cycle of tending the light. It's like living in a time-lapse video, but you're the only one experiencing it in slow motion. Your senses sharpen, adapting to the minimalist environment. The subtle changes in the wind's direction, the distinct cries of different seabirds, the faintest scent of rain on the horizon. These details, once ignored, now become rich sources of information and subtle stimulation. You might hear the distant rumble of thunder long before it's visible, or feel the change in air pressure before a storm. Your sense of sight becomes finely tuned to the nuances of light and shadow, to the shifting colors of the sea and sky. It's as if your brain, deprived of the usual sensory overload, has recalibrated itself to extract maximum information from its quiet surroundings. A mainstream historical fact: prolonged periods of isolation, particularly in environments with repetitive stimuli like lighthouses, have been documented to induce a phenomenon known as sensory enhancement, where individuals report heightened auditory, visual, and even tactile perceptions, sometimes leading to benign hallucinations. So, if you think you just heard a faint symphony coming from the waves, you're probably not entirely wrong. A quirky tidbit that might make you pause. Some keepers developed a habit of communicating through complex systems of gestures or subtle facial expressions with the very few creatures that occasionally visited them, such as persistent seagulls or playful seals. It was a silent language born of necessity and loneliness. Historians still argue whether the profound psychological effects of long-term isolation primarily led to mental deterioration for lighthouse keepers, or if it prompted unique forms of self-discovery and a deeper understanding of one's inner world. Your internal dialogue intensifies. With no one else to talk to, your own thoughts become your most constant companions. You might find yourself engaging in long, elaborate discussions with yourself, debating philosophical questions, replaying past events, or planning future hypothetical scenarios. This can be a rich, introspective process, leading to a deeper understanding of your own motivations and beliefs. However, it can also amplify anxieties, turning minor worries into major concerns, as there's no external voice to offer a different perspective or provide reassurance. The very concept of personal space evolves. What was once an unconscious boundary now becomes a vast, unchallenged expanse. You move through the lighthouse with an unhurried grace, your movements dictated by function rather than the need to navigate around others. The complete absence of human touch, of casual physical contact, becomes a subtle, persistent ache. You might find yourself unconsciously rubbing your own arms, a silent yearning for a connection that isn't there. Your routines become deeply ingrained, almost ritualistic. The morning cleaning of the lamp, the midday weather observations, the evening preparation for the night's vigil. These aren't just tasks, they are anchors, providing structure and meaning to your days. Deviating from them can feel disorienting, even unsettling. There's a comfort in the predictability, a sense of control in a world where so much is untamed. You become a creature of habit, your life precisely measured by the needs of the light. Sleep patterns often shift. With no external alarm clocks or social obligations, your body's natural circadian rhythms might reassert themselves. You might sleep longer during periods of calm and less during storms, adapting your rest to the demands of the sea. Dreams can become more vivid, more intense, offering an escape into a world populated by familiar faces and forgotten landscapes, a stark contrast to the quiet reality of your waking hours. There's a growing self-sufficiency, a profound independence that borders on fierce. You learn to rely entirely on yourself for everything: repairs, cooking, entertainment, emotional regulation. The thought of depending on anyone else, or even being in a crowded space, begins to feel foreign, almost uncomfortable. You have cultivated a life of self-reliance, and the idea of rejoining a world that demands constant social negotiation seems daunting, even exhausting. It's like you've leveled up in the hermit skill tree. As the months turn into years, you realize that your identity has become deeply intertwined with the lighthouse itself. You are not just a keeper. You are the keeper, an extension of its enduring purpose. The profound quiet has not broken you. It has reshaped you, stripping away the non-essentials and revealing a core of resilience you never knew you possessed. You have learned to find solace in solitude, strength in silence, and a quiet, profound purpose in the unwavering gaze of the light. Your thoughts increasingly drift to the bustling, forgotten world you left behind on the continent, a place that now feels less like a memory and more like a myth. The supply boat, a fleeting connection, merely reinforces the vast distance, both physical and emotional, between your isolated existence and the vibrant chaos of human civilization. You find yourself gazing out across the endless expanse of the ocean, imagining the cities, the people, the very rhythms of life that continue without you. You recall the cacophony of a busy street, the mingled sense of exhaust fumes and street food, the hurried chatter of passers-by. Here, the loudest sound is the crashing of waves, the sharp cry of a gull. You miss the casual anonymity of crowds, the comforting feeling of being just one among millions, a stark contrast to the singular, stark visibility of your lonely vigil. You even find yourself missing the mundane irritations, traffic jams, long queues, the petty squabbles of daily life. These were all signs of connection, of shared experience, now utterly absent. It's like missing a particularly annoying relative after they've moved to a different planet. The news that arrives with the supply boat, often weeks or months old, is devoured with a strange mix of fascination and detachment. You read about political upheavals, scientific breakthroughs, cultural trends, events that once felt vital, but now seem distant, almost irrelevant to your immediate reality. You struggle to connect with the urgency of a stock market fluctuation or the drama of a celebrity scandal when your most pressing concern is ensuring the lamp mechanism doesn't seize up. It's like reading ancient history, but it's technically still current events. A mainstream historical fact. The psychological disconnect between isolated keepers and the mainland was a well-documented phenomenon. Many found it increasingly difficult to reintegrate into society after long periods of service, often struggling with overstimulation, social anxiety, and a feeling of being out of sync with the faster pace of urban life. A quirky tidbit you might have heard from an old sea dog. Some keepers, anticipating their return to the mainland, would practice conversations aloud, rehearsing what they might say to friends and family, only to find themselves tongue-tied and overwhelmed when the actual moment arrived. Imagine trying to explain your entire life over the last few years in a few coherent sentences. Historians still argue whether this difficulty in reintegration was a natural consequence of profound environmental change, or if it pointed to a deeper, more permanent alteration in the individual's psychological makeup. You think of food, not just the sustenance you consume, but the variety, the choice, the sensory delight of a meal shared with others. The rich aroma of freshly baked bread from a bustling bakery, the sizzling sound of a steak on a grill, the vibrant colours of fresh produce in a market. Your palate, accustomed to preserved meats and dried vegetables, aches for the forgotten flavours of the mainland, for the simple pleasure of a fresh apple or a crisp salad. Dreams become a vivid, often bittersweet, escape. You walk through crowded streets, sit in bustling cafes, laugh with friends, and wake with a start to the familiar quiet of your lighthouse, the phantom sensation of a hand in yours, quickly dissipating into the cool morning air. These dreams are a cruel comfort, offering fleeting glimpses of a world that feels increasingly out of reach, highlighting the chasm between your dream self and your waking reality. You conjure up images of leisure activities, movies in a dark, theatre, the camaraderie of a local pub, a simple stroll through a park, encountering strangers without the burden of being the sole human presence for miles. Here, your leisure is solitary reading, quiet observation, or the occasional mending of a sock. The contrast is stark, leading to moments of profound longing, a quiet ache for the ease and abundance of social connection. Even the most mundane aspects of mainland life take on a nostalgic glow. The feel of freshly laundered clothes not stiff, with salt, the simple act of turning on a tap for clean running water, the ubiquitous glow of electric lights after dark. These small conveniences, once taken for granted, now seem like luxuries beyond imagining. You reflect on how much of modern life is built on collective effort, on the constant interaction and support of others, a stark contrast to your radical self-reliance. As your term nears its end, the thoughts of the mainland grow more frequent, more insistent. The anticipation of return is a slow burn, a flickering hope in the profound quiet. But it's not without apprehension. You know you've changed. The person who arrived on this island is not the same person who will eventually leave. The quiet has carved something new within you, something perhaps unfitted for the clamour and demands of the world you once knew. You wonder if you'll remember how to navigate social cues, how to engage in casual conversation, how to exist without the the constant, all-encompassing presence of the sea. You worry about the overstimulation, the noise, the sheer number of people. The mainland, once a beacon of freedom, now feels like a place of overwhelming complexity, a vibrant, terrifying jungle you're not sure you're ready to re-enter. Yet, the longing persists, a silent, persistent call from the world beyond your horizon, a world you increasingly feel like a ghost inhabiting. As your posting nears its end, you reflect on the profound, quiet transformation you've undergone, a metamorphosis shaped by the relentless sea, the unyielding stone of the tower, and the absolute solitude that has been your constant companion. The person who arrived on this island, filled with a mixture of apprehension and perhaps a romanticized notion of isolation, is long gone. In their place stands someone quieter, more observant, intimately connected to the elemental rhythms of the world. The days now carry a different cadence. Each meticulous task, once a monotonous duty, is now performed with a quiet reverence, a final farewell to a routine that has defined your existence. You clean the lens with a heightened awareness of its crystalline clarity, tracing its facets as if imprinting their memory onto your fingertips. You wind the lamp mechanism, listening to its familiar hum, a bittersweet symphony of gears and weights that will soon be someone else's responsibility. Every action is tinged with a quiet nostalgia, a silent acknowledgement of the end of an era. You find yourself taking long, contemplative walks around the island, revisiting familiar spots. The rugged cliffs where you battled your first storm, the sheltered coves where you watched the seals, the narrow path leading to the jetty that once felt so daunting. Each place holds a mosaic of memories, vivid and tactile, imprinted by the unique lens of your isolation. You collect small, smooth pebbles from the shore, or a piece of particularly interesting driftwood, tangible reminders of the raw beauty that has surrounded you. These aren't just souvenirs, they are anchors, grounding you to this profound experience. Mainstream historical fact: the completion of a lighthouse keeper's term was often a deeply emotional experience, marked by a mixture of relief and a surprising sense of loss. Many keepers, despite the hardships, found it difficult to leave the unique peace and purpose of their isolated lives, often struggling to adjust to the noise and demands of mainland society. A quirky tidbit you might recall from an old account: one keeper, upon leaving his remote post after decades of service, was said to have saluted the lighthouse as his boat pulled away, then promptly burst into tears, unable to articulate the profound bond he had formed with the structure. Historians still argue whether the apparent calmness and acceptance of the approaching end of a keeper's term was a genuine emotional state, or merely a protective facade for a deeply complex and often conflicting mix of anticipation and regret. The silence that once pressed in on you now feels like an old friend. You've learned to appreciate its depth, its capacity for introspection. The constant roar of the ocean, which once seemed overwhelming, is now a comforting lullaby, a timeless soundtrack to your solitude. You realize that you've discovered an inner quiet, a wellspring of peace that you will carry with you, a sanctuary impervious to the clamor of the outside world. You gaze out at the vast, indifferent sea, no longer with longing for the distant mainland, but with a newfound respect for its power and its profound beauty. You've witnessed its fury, its calm, its endless transformations, and you've understood deeply your place within its grand elemental scheme. The horizon, once a barrier, now feels like a boundary of your expanded self, a testament to the growth forged in isolation. As the final day dawns, you perform your duties for the very last time. The morning cleaning of the lamp, the last careful check of the mechanism, the final entry in the logbook. Each action is deliberate, a farewell etched in routine. You extinguish the light, knowing that another keeper will soon ignite it, carrying on the ancient vigil. There's a quiet satisfaction in this handover, a sense of continuing the legacy. You descend the spiral stairs, your footsteps echoing through the empty tower, a final symphony of solitude. You pause at the entrance, turning to look back at the winding staircase, the silent rooms, the imposing lens above. This stone structure, once just a building, has become a part of you, a crucible that has transformed your spirit. When the supply boat finally arrives to collect you, the sight of human faces is both welcome and jarring. Their voices sound loud, their movements hurried. You exchange quiet pleasantries, but you find yourself struggling to articulate the depth of your experience, the profound shifts within you. How do you explain the silent conversations with the sea, the intimate dance, with the light, the subtle way time has bent to your will? You realize some experiences are ineffable, destined to remain within the quiet confines of your own heart. As the boat pulls away from the jetty, you stand on the deck, watching the lighthouse recede into the distance, its silhouette shrinking against the vastness of the sea. You see its powerful beam, a silent sentinel that will soon begin its nightly vigil once more. You feel a pang of melancholy, a quiet ache of separation, but also a profound sense of accomplishment. You have endured, you have served, and you have, in the quiet solitude of your post, discovered a strength and a wisdom you never knew you possessed. The light may shine for others, but in its unwavering gaze, you found your own. The waves will continue their endless rhythm, the wind will whisper its ancient tales, and the light will pierce the darkness night after night. But you, the keeper, who stood silent vigil, carry a piece of that quiet, enduring power within you, a beacon forged in the crucible of isolation. As the boat gently rocks you, the familiar hum of its engine begins to lull you, a different kind of constant sound. Then the roar of the sea, signaling a shift, a new beginning. The vastness of the ocean remains, but now it carries you towards a new horizon, one that holds the promise of human connection, yet forever holds the echoes of the quiet, beautiful solitude you have known. The rhythmic sweep of a lighthouse beam, cutting through the vast inky blackness, is a simple, enduring image. It's a quiet promise, a steadfast presence in a world of constant change. And tonight, as you drift deeper into sleep, perhaps you'll carry a piece of that quiet power with you. Imagine the soft hum of the rotating lamp, a gentle whirring that accompanies the deep, calming breaths of the ocean. Picture the light, not just piercing the darkness, but cradling it, holding it gently within its embrace. There's a certain peace in knowing that even in the most profound solitude, there is purpose, there is connection, and there is always, always a guiding light. Let that steady beam illuminate the pathway to your dreams, softening the edges of any lingering thoughts, inviting you to release the day's worries. Just the gentle sound of the waves, washing ashore, receding, washing ashore again, a timeless rhythm that carries you deeper into a peaceful slumber. Good night.